Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gaijin Gaiden. And this time I want to talk to you about dryers. And this is an idea that came to me just a little while ago. In fact, I'm fittingly enough actually just threw some stuff in the laundry just a minute ago. But anyway, since the main thing of our channel is just sort of talking about like the little everyday things of life in Japan, particularly the things that people who aren't living here but are interested in coming to Japan might not think about. And dryers are seriously one of the big things. Now, of course, if you start reading about people who talk about what it is like to live in Japan, to live in, like I do, a Japanese apartment. I live in a studio apartment, just basically kind of one room. I've got a little water closet with the toilet inside, and then I have a little thing off to the side where that functions as my shower. But I don't have a dryer. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't have a dryer. I have a washer. And in my previous apartment, like the when I lived in a different place in Japan, the washer was kind of off in this little kind of cubby kind of corner all by itself. Um, Currently, my washer is actually on my balcony, and there's a hookup nearby where it was previously like basically in the kitchen, and there's literally like a spigot where the water used to be attached, and like a little hole in the floor where the water would drain out. And like I said, now it's out on my balcony, which does free up some room in the kitchen. I mean, boy, that would have been so inconvenient to have a big washer right there in the middle of my kitchen. But nonetheless, we're talking about dryers, and the thing is here that generally speaking, especially if you live in an apartment, you're not going to have a dryer, which I mean is kind of a little bit mind blowing. You know, for a lot of people, especially Americans like myself. You know, when I've lived in apartments in America, either there was like a communal laundry room with washers and dryers, uh, or in my last American apartment, there was just a laundry room where with a washer and dryer. But here, that's not a thing. Dryers are if, the exception rather than the rule. And you know, of course, I grew up in America where just a dryer is a given, and it does take a little getting used to. Dryers, and this is like a scientific fact. You know, if you put a clothes in a dryer, they come out softer and fluffier. And you know, when you're initially getting used to that, the first time you really do notice that your clothes are a little bit more stiff than what you're used to. But you do get used to it pretty quickly. And of course, for a lot of the people here, it's basically a case of you can't miss what you never had. Now, of course, there are perfectly good reasons as to why most people here don't have dryers. As always, in Japan, space is at a premium. And I don't think it's going to be a surprise to you people that Japanese apartments tend to be a little bit on the small side. So if you can kind of just basically chuck something that big out and have that little extra bit of space, that can really do a lot. And again, for most people here, they didn't have dryers growing up, so they don't really miss them. And even for Western people, when we move here to Japan, it is something that you do adjust to pretty quickly. I mean, you always kind of think like, man, I would like to have a dryer. It would certainly be very convenient. But again, you just kind of go on about your life, and it's a pretty quick adjustment. The real exception to that, though, is winter time. Now, I'm fortunate that the times I've lived in Japan, I've actually either been living in a house where we did have a dryer, which was again kind of the exception, or I lived somewhere where it wasn't super cold during winter. But even that said, trying to dry your clothes outside during the winter is not the easiest thing in the world. Um, you can try it. Usually your clothes will dry out somewhat. But they'll be kind of damp. My first apartment, I had to get one of these big drying racks and set it up in the middle of my living room, and it would literally take like 2 days for my clothes to dry. So I had this like 2 or 3 days out of the week, there would be this big drying rack in the middle of my living room with all my clothes drying on it, and that really stunk. Of course, you're also having all of this kind of extra moisture in the space that you're living, which is not great in terms of avoiding like mold and mildew, and generally moisture and dampness are things you kind of want to avoid during winter. My current apartment, it's not so bad, but when it was winter time here, um, I would sometimes have to bring stuff inside to kind of fit and dry out, help it dry out properly, and yeah, that wasn't so fun. So I was definitely happy when it got to started being warm enough that I could put things outside again. I can't even imagine what it's like over in the more northern parts of Japan, where they actually get snow. Because I live in Kyushu, like way down south in the southern part of Japan. um, I kind of tell people to sort of like think of a place like Alabama or somewhere like that in terms of weather-wise. And I guess if you're not from the states, that might not quite resonate with you. But just think, usually pretty warm to outright hot, quite humid during the summer, and winter's cold. You do need a good coat here, but snow is basically just not an issue. I've never seen more than just like a dusting of snow here, and that's not very common at all. Now, me personally, I'm from northern Indiana. I grew up basically within spitting distance of the border with Michigan. So for me, like going to bed one night and having like waking up and there being like snow almost up to your knees from one night of snowing, that happened to be more times than I can count growing up. So yeah, lots of snow, cold as heck. That's winter to me. What we have down here in Kyushu, I mean, that's kind of like an unusually cool November to me. So, like getting through winter is not really that big of a hassle for me. But that whole trying to do the laundry and get it, uh, you know, dry in a reasonable period of time, that really is one of the great big hassles of winter. So I do during winter time particularly think like, man, I miss dryers. I miss dryers so much because like I can basically have everything done in like 45 minutes. But that's kind of one of the little prices you have to pay to be here. And yeah, it's kind of a hassle, but ultimately I do think it's it's a price worth paying. I mean, it's something that you can adjust to. And I think dryers are starting to pick up in popularity here. Of course, space is at a premium, but also keep in mind in the past, energy was also at a lot more of a premium. Now, the Japan power industry is something I know quite a lot about, but I do know that they've been like always trying to make sure that there's enough power to fit the demand. It has been quite an ongoing concern for some time. And they have the same situation in Korea, where I also used to live. But I think we're getting a little off topic. So anyway, um, I think that covers everything I had to say on this particular shoot. So thanks for taking some time out of your day to listen to what I had to say. Until next time, take care and have a good one.